There we go.
You want video?
Huh?
You want video as well?
I'm just gonna. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hyperledger Identus Rare Evo workshop. I'm Rye Jones. I'm the senior community architect for what used to be Hyperledger, is now LF and it's really gratifying to see such international representation. I think everyone here is from different countries. We have, a lot of people are here. It's really good. This is a very interesting area. It's very fast growing, and I think that the Identus is doing a lot of interesting stuff. I'd also like to introduce my coworker, Jessica Gonzalez.
Hello.
She has just started, and say a few words.
Yeah. So I started back in February. I actually have been with LF for about 8 years, and previously I was working with the LFN communities. So I have experience working with other communities as well as PyTorch. And right now I'm very excited to be part of the Haro team, and we have one representative here with us as well. So we continue to help you guys with anything that you need, and I'm excited to meet everybody.
Yep. And if you have any questions about how to do things, how to get meetings set up, how to do anything in GitHub, whatever, we're the people to reach out to. So I'll hand the stage over to.
Hi guys, welcome. So my name is Gonçalo. I'm part of the Identus maintainers of Hyperledger, right? I do more with the SDK side of Identus. So let's start this workshop, right? I'm just going to make a brief introduction of identity, the digital identity space, right? So just a brief setup so we can understand all, right? So first, meet our speakers. Ryan already presented himself, right? We have Shaush, the technical architect on Identus, right? We have Fabio, that is also here, that is a technical architect, a senior developer that works with the mediator and the cloud agent side, also the VDR. Me, I work more with the SDKs and the VDR. We have Javier as well. Is not with us anymore on Identus, but he still contributes a lot on the SDKs. And we have Sierra Yun as well, that is going to present on the Socialstack platform. So next, what is on the agenda? First, we are going just to present it, to have this small briefing. Then Ravi and Fabio they are going to present, demonstrate SIP30 compatible wallet, right? They are going to publish it. They are going to do something with credentials, I think, sir. But they will have offline first with Lace as well. Then we are going, Social is going to make their own presentation, right? And then I'm going to present what we are doing in Lace Wallet as well. We are integrating Identus in Lace Wallet. So SSI, right? So first, from the beginning, our project started with a Tala on IO, right? Then we went for the Tala V2 SSI. Then in June 24, we went for with the Hyperledger, right? So we went to Hyperledger, and we started working with the Linux Foundation in Hyperledger, and we became Identus. Okay. So small SSI concepts, decentralized identifiers, right? This is one of the basics that is going to enable digital identity. It's what identify you as a person, company, and so on, right? This is a basic, and these are very powerful and can enable all kinds of verifications of credentials, right? Then we have verifiable credentials, right? This is our the basics. There are multiple flavors of this. We have JWT, SDJWT, MDoc, unknown creds, right? All have their own caveats, but they all align with one objective. They want to an organization or enterprise or a government can issue claims about someone or something, right? And you can verify those claims are issued by that entity, right? Then you have verifiable presentation. Verifiable presentations is basically if a verifier requests some data from a holder from you, right? You can answer with or without providing all the data that you have on that credential, right? So this is where the credentials types come in. So trust model. The trust model, we have three actors normally. That is the issuer, the holder, and the verifier. Okay. So the issuer is, we can say it's a government, right? The government issues a credential for a holder that, let's say it's you, yourself, right? You keep this credential and the verifier can request data from a credential that you may or may not have, and you can provide that data to the verifier, right? The verifier with that, he can judge if the credential, if the data is valid. He can judge if the issuer that issued that credential is valid for him, like if he can trust that issuer, and so on. We also have a mid actor in here that is a verifiable data registry, right? Verifiable data registry is just a place where data can be public, right, and downloaded and verifiable. So the whoever gets the data from the VDR, we call it VDR for short, can verify that data was actually created by the issuer. Okay, that is a very important part. So what Identus provides as communication protocols, right? We provide DITCOM v2. DITCOM v2, basically, it's a communication protocol that uses DITs to communicate securely and encrypt it, okay? Then we have the mediator. The mediator, you can think it's a mailbox, right? For mobile phones, for other type of technologies that cannot create their own server, right? They actually need to receive the messages. So the mediator just provides that middleman that keeps the messages, and then the holder of the deed can get their messages that are for him, okay? So now, let's go to what Identus already supports, right? We already support VCDM 1.0. This is the verifiable credentials data model that is sorry, that was created by W3C, right? You have all the papers in there for W3C, all the specifications, and we are working on supporting the version 2.0. Okay. Then we support JWT verifiable credentials, right? It's a simple JWT token with claims, right? Nothing much special about that, right? We have also support selective disclosure credentials. That is in the case SDJWT. These are more special credentials because you can, when a verifier asks for you, for example, your birthday, right? And you have a credential that has your name, your birthday, your name, and so on. You can present the credential to the verifier just with your name, right? So the verifier wouldn't. You can think of if you have your own ID, right, as a card, and you black out every single other information but your birthday, right? You can think it like this, and the verifier cannot know the other data, right? And then we have unknown creds. Unknown creds is even more special kind of credential. It's called zero knowledge proof, right? Zero knowledge proof. On the example I just gave, you can think, instead of even giving your birth date, right? The verifier can ask you, oh, are you older than 18, right? A question. And you can answer yes or no with a proof that the verifier can then verify if the data, You will not get access to the data, but through cryptographic, you can verify that answer is correct, is proofable. And that credential itself gives you the proof without having access to any data. So it's a yes or no question. Okay. So these are the credentials we already support. We are on the works to start supporting MDoc, because MDoc is going to be, well, it's being supported by Android, by Google, by Apple, right? So we want also to support it, right? Yes. Now, Identus project overview. So as I said before, we are part now of Hyperledger, right? And the Linux Foundation. Our GitHub home is Identus.io, where you have all this documentation, you have all these specifications that we also create. We are also very involved with W3C, right? And you have the Identus documentation portal, right? And the list of supported. What we provide already of technology, we provide an Apollo cryptographic library, right? That is tested for all the platforms that we support. This includes JVM, JS, browser nodes, TS, and mobile, Android, and iOS. Actually, not only iOS, all the Apple platforms that exist. We also have a SDK TS, we have a SDK for Swift, and we have a SDK for Kotlin. We have a cloud agent platform where you can basically it works as the issuer, right? The issuer part, it will be the cloud agent. We have a mediator as well for the communication, right? As I said, the middleman. And we have a Prism node. The Prism node basically works, it's our layer to publish deeds on the Cardano blockchain, right? So it's one part of the deeds. Actually, Javi will have a very good explanation around that. And his workshop is actually publishing the deed, right? Yeah. So now I give to Javi.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Okay, so my name is Javi. I've been working in Identus for a bunch of years, and I'm going to be running a workshop today that aims to make using identity easier in Cardano. So the first thing that we are going to cover is the whole end-to-end flow for issuance, verification, and holding of credentials. Then on each of the slides, we are going to have like very easy code examples that you guys can copy. Also, as part of the workshop, there is a bunch of QR codes that you guys can scan and then get access to the straight 130 lines of code with the full example. So let me switch to the other slide. Full screen. Yes. Okay. Cool. So here's a short diagram, and it would be interesting for you guys to start like reading the overall structure of this, because over the presentation, you guys are going to be seeing as these kind of lines are selected, which means that like pay attention to the line that is showing different, because that's actually what it's running. So as you can see, we have different entities in here. We have like the two main components that Gonzalo also introduced us, the issuer, the verifier. We also have Cardano blockchain. Why do we use Cardano blockchain? So as Gonzalo said, there is the long form and the short form Prism deeds, which are used to, they basically store a reference of those public keys. And then the verifiers would choose the short form Prism deed, resolve it. Resolving a deed means that you will actually resolve this public case. And then the good thing about introducing this decentralized deed publishing and all that is that you no longer need an endpoint to tell you if that credential is valid, but you can rely on blockchain itself. And then from my humble perspective, also Cardano brings brings a lot of value as a network because it was not a network designed as other competitors we have that is purely designed to hold identity. Cardano is a network that is sustainable by itself and doesn't need identity to function. And that's very powerful because if not, the other networks sometimes struggle to incentivize the nodes and contributing to building a more decentralized approach. So that will be the first slide. Now, here's where all the interactive session happens. After explaining each session, I will click in here to see the code example, but I would prefer us to build like a more interactive session. So if at any point in the presentation you have any question, like feel free to raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, and my question is, how hard is Identus coupled to Cardano, or is it in theory possible to run it on any other chain?
That's a great question, and I think the whole team agrees that we've been like focusing on having a different vision that is more agnostic on where it's running. So if you ask me the question today, the foundations are there to make it chain agnostic. But today, the first implementation that we have is more Cardano based, and that makes sense for us.
Yeah. Okay.
Which doesn't mean in a future we extend to using other DID methods or other networks at the end.
The VDR we are also implementing, it's part of Catalyst proposal that we have, right? It's also going to be chain agnostic, right? So you can actually use any chain, you just need to create a driver about it, and it will be chain agnostic and create a driver for Solana, for everyone to use, even a database.
Cool. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very doable to have multi-chain, let's say. There's a lot of like small details that we would need to figure out. Like if an instance of something lives on a blockchain, what happens if that instance of something changes in the other blockchain? There's a lot of things that we would need to figure out. But so far in this screen, as you see, the only thing that we are going to do is we are going to create the Prism DID, and then yeah, I probably missed adding the Lace thing, but we are going to be using Lace Wallet to publish the DID on mainnet right now. Then in whatever it takes, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes while I'm talking, we will see that the long form representation of that DID suddenly becomes shorter. And this means that the DID has been published. And so far, if you just share that short reference, everyone will be able to resolve to the public keys, which is at the end what you would be interested in. So let's see. This is the long form presentation. I think the letter is probably too small for you guys to notice, but you can see that here there's 2 dots, right? The first part of that is like the hash or the reference that should never change. And this part that you see here is just the public key representation of that, which you could create a credential having this long form representation, but then the problem is that once the holder comes to you as a verifier, it tells you that my credential was signed with that DID, but there is no value. Like I could come with a different DID every time, and you wouldn't have any way. Versus if the DID is published on chain and the DID is known by verifiers and other holders, then it makes a lot more sense. Cool. So what happened in here? Like I must say that this integration is, yeah, you've seen. I'm really happy to see how smoothly this thing is integrating with Lace. So what basically happened is that by clicking this is showing in a full screen. So what happened is that we went back to the Lace Chrome extension in a full screen. So what you've seen is Lace in full screen. And now we are basically checking, I think every 15, 30 seconds, we are checking if the DID is already published. As soon as you see that the DID is like suddenly, yeah, it should be short. It would remove the last part of the DID. We can continue the presentation. I think anyway, if we have the long form, we could still do it, but.
Well, you're publishing it on chain right now.
Yes, like literally on mainnet. So Yeah, okay. So now that we have that, everyone that copies this into a universal resolver for Prism deed will be able to resolve the keys. And it didn't take so much. Then in here, you will see that there is a little bit more of code that is not so related to the actual creation of the Prism deed. The reason why I'm pasting that is because I want to make sure if you guys revisit this in the afternoon, at night, tomorrow, next week, that it is extremely easy to understand. So what are we seeing here? We have a couple of functions that are here just for configuration. I'm using one mediator that I deployed online. This is the one that is by default configured. Then, as Gonzalo introduced to us, everything that communicates an issuer with a holder or a holder with a holder or a verifier with an issuer or vice versa needs to have DITCOM. So this function is basically responsible of waiting for a specific DITCOM message. So imagine that you as an issuer send a credential offer and you want to wait until the user accepted that offer. This is the function that you would use to wait for that specific message. Then this function is almost self-explanatory. The only thing that we are using is the SDK to trigger Apollo, our cryptographic package. We are also using Pluto to create the storage castor to create the resolvers. Also, it's worth mentioning here that the example that runs on Node.js doesn't have a lace integration, of course, because there is no like Node.js lace thing, that it doesn't make sense. So that's why you see an empty array here. In the website that you see when I close that screen, there is a different value in here. Can somebody maybe guess why we have a different value? If anyone has any idea why could that be? It's probably related to the fact that we published the deed. So by default, the SDK does not bundle all the resolvers that are possible, mainnet, testnet, SanchoNet, and all these kind of networks. So by default, we are not bundling everything. Anyway, it is extremely simple. It takes like maybe 40 lines of code to do an API request to resolve the deed, and that's the only thing that you would need. Then, again, the last functions are also self-explanatory. What we are doing in here is just creating a specific key for the credential and for whatever we need to create in here. I'm also using this role just for the sake of storing things with a different reference. And then this is the only import that you would need to take, and this comes from the TypeScript SDK. And then in here, we see like the references that, as you see, this is doing nothing, right? But this is just the start of the workshop. So we will get back to this code later. Cool. So we grabbed a deed, we used lace, we published the deed on chain. So now the issuer is known or could be known by just having this deed.
Real quick, do you tie that deed to the wallet address in any way, or?
Not right now.
We can come back for that later, I guess.
Yeah, we could maybe cover that at the end of the workshop if you want.
We have a new specification for that, and probably Fabrice can talk more about that. Yeah.
So,
But we have a specification to basically have the Prism deeds connected to a wallet. So if you recover the wallet later, let's say you put, we did this more for lace, but the specification is for everything, right? So if you recover the wallet later in the day, you will also recover your deed.
currently, or if you haven't tied to that wallet?
So we are giving the possibility of doing that, but not really tied. Well, even if you do with that specification that we are doing, you can always change it and not be tied to the wallet as well. Yeah.
But you're signing stuff with the wallet.
Yeah, so we are just using the transaction to put the metadata in that.
So far, like today, any web wallet or any wallet could create a transaction. What matters is not so much who created the transaction, but the metadata that is inside and who signed that metadata. In a future, as they are saying, we are planning to make it more like tied. Imagine that in order to issue the deed, you would need a hardware wallet, and without that hardware wallet, there is no way to do it. That's the whole point. Okay, so in here, we are going to next step. As you see, the first step, we already published the deed. So now what we are going to do is the issuer is going to create a credential offer through an out of band, which is a concept that we integrated in the past year. And basically what it means is that you no longer need to establish a DITCOM connection with any of the parties that you want to establish communication with. You can handle everything in one single shot. So in one single shot, we will create an out of band offer, which includes the credential offer inside. And then the holder will get that link. You guys can imagine that that link can be shared by email, through a QR code or stuff like that. QR codes are a little bit more sensitive because of their limitation on the size. But for credential offers, I'm very sure that it can be used. So now, this is a very simple UI. Again, I don't want you to focus so much on this part, which is like the visual part. But if you're interested in understanding what is the code that is running behind, it's better that you guys check the code directly. So let's go back to the form. I'm just going to create the credential for myself for Rare Evo. I actually said it wrong. I didn't create a credential. What I created is an offer. Then with this credential offer, what we need to do is share it with the holder. The holder will then receive the credential offer, and then you would display the typical UI. Do you want to accept it or reject it? Which is what we are going to see in the next screen. Probably before we go to the next screen, I prefer probably showing how simple it is to create the credential offer. So on the first part, we are just creating the peer deed that we want the from to become. Then we are just hard coding or creating a very quick preview of a credential. This credential is going to have 2 or 3 claims that I already predefined. I think one of the claims is name. The other claim is event name or something like that, that we automatically are going to set it up as Rare Evo. And then, let's see. So now that we have that, I'm just going to click on use, and it will start creating that URL that I said that is going to be shared across different nodes, different entities. So what happened in here and why the previous screen suddenly the URL disappeared is because this needs to be like a full presentation, right? So I'm like simulating that you already shared that link with the holder. So imagine you as a holder would receive Gonzalo wants to offer you a credential that has these 2 specific claims. Do you want to accept it or not? That's literally what is happening here. Also, over time, this process was slightly complex to run, and we simplified things in a way that I think everyone can understand these 2 or 3 functions, right? On the first function, what we are doing is we are parsing the offer on JSON, which is what the holder would need to do. And then what we are doing in this function is, maybe let's start from the beginning. The issuance flow is composed of several steps. On the first step, the issuer creates an offer for the holder. The holder then gets acknowledged, like somebody wants to issue you a credential. The holder can then decide if he wants to get that credential or even reject that credential. Then once that happens, once we click on this accept credential offer, what we are going to do is create the credential request message, which is what tells the issuer that, yes, I want this credential, so please send it to me whenever it's possible. And also worth mentioning that we completed 2 of the steps. The next step that we are going to be doing by clicking here, as we already said, is we are creating the credential request and sending it back to the issuer. Awesome. So now let's wait a couple of seconds while the mediator is figuring things out and distributing the message. Now, the issuer sent an offer. Let's say, for me, it's going to be easier to maybe say Gonzalo as an issuer, and then myself as a holder. So I told Gonzalo that, yes, I accept you sending me the credential, and this is what Gonzalo would receive. Gonzalo sees that he started an issuance request or a credential offer request, and it is in a state where it needs to approve that you are going to be issuing this credential to whoever that is saying. That's what we are going to do by clicking on issuing. And now I'm on the next screen. The next screen again, yeah, maybe it's worth mentioning that if you check the background, there is like 2 or 3 different backgrounds, so you can like visually identify what's the role that is happening on each of the steps. So now we are on the holder side. On the holder side, if the holder has confirmed to the issuer that it wants the credential, the next step is the issuer will send you the actual credential. This is what we see in here. So in here, we see that there is a claim, there is a credential with the following claims. Also, the sub is the subject, so it would be myself. And we also have the short form deed, which is Gonzalo's deed or the issuer's deed. Now, the workshop could finish here, right? We issued a credential to a holder, the holder accepted this, we created an offer, the holder accepted the offer, and now the holder has a credential in his wallet that he can use whenever it's needed. So that's why we see all that part is green. Now, on the next slides, we are no longer going to be using so much the issuer, but instead, we are going to start using a different entity, which is the verifier. And then we will use all that Prism deed thing that we were speaking about at the beginning on why it's important to get the deed published on chain and what value does it bring to verification. So now, again, the diagrams, I really tried to make an effort on making it extremely easy to understand. If at any point there's something that you guys don't understand, feel free to stop me. What we are going to do in here is we are going to be using the verifier, and it all starts with a request. The holder then needs to accept or reject that request, and then whoever will do something with it, right? That's what will happen in here. The holder will accept and create a verifiable presentation, and then this verifier will then, instead of contacting in the old classic web-to-world, contacting an endpoint that tells you this credential is valid or not, you no longer need that endpoint. You just need access to the blockchain. Even if you had an offline copy of the whole Cardano blockchain, you could run verification offline, understanding that you could run verification until the point that you registered the transaction. If it happened after, obviously it's not known to you. Awesome. Let me drink a little bit of water. I'm going to do a couple of things. First one is going to the first step to copy the deed, which I forgot doing. And then, okay, in this step, we are going to create several presentation requests and several verifications for you guys to see what's the difference between the settings that we have and how to make sure that we are indeed validating the things. So going back to my credential, which is stored in here, I just added KB with an H and a Y, so I'm just going to be using the same. Cool. Now, in this step, we are going to, again, use the concept of the out-of-band credential offer or the out-of-band presentation. What that means is that without this out-of-band presentation, you would need to first establish a connection with that deed. And once you know that this deed belongs to this person, you would do a presentation request. The out-of-band presentation request saves you of this step and makes everything in one single request. So again, what you will see in here is the same link that we saw before. The link in this case for the presentation request is a lot longer, so we are still figuring things out on how to make this a QR code friendly stuff. So far, it's just a URL. Sorry. The URL it's like pretty obvious. This is a base 64 string, and inside it contains a DITCOM message with specific content inside, in this case, a presentation. And in the same way, I'm simulating in the next slide that I share this link. Somebody else is verifier, but the verifier is going to share with me, the holder, this URL, and then I will process it on my wallet. So on my wallet, what I would get, we are in here now. So what we need to do is we receive a presentation request, which is telling you what are the requirements for that presentation. It needs to be issued by a specific issuer, and it needs to have a specific claim, which are the claims that I mentioned before. It could be also that you would only show the credentials in here that you have claims available for. But for this demo, I am allowing you to choose a different credential so that we can make the false scenario. So now what we are doing is, again, creating the verifiable presentation. Then it is also very important to mention that you would never share a credential. What you share is a presentation of that credential, which means that you compute proof of the claims that your credential holds, and then you share that proof with the verifier. And the verifier should be able to verify absolutely everything without reaching any endpoint that is not Cardano blockchain itself. Okay, now we're in the last step, right? Well, we probably missed. We probably missed this part that is again, the code is extremely easy to follow. But then what we need to do here is we get the DITCOM presentation request message, and we convert it to a presentation, and we send that presentation through the agent. And these 5 lines already make sure that you are delivering it to the right person and all that. We've been focusing a lot on making things a lot easier to use, and I think this is a great representation of what that goal means for us. What else? Then a little bit of a weird code, I would say, in line 15 and 24, which is, why do I need to wait for this presentation request message? Keep in mind that the end of the workshop is just 130 lines of code that you can run on your laptop, right? So this is just creating the listeners in the right moment, so you are able to get the message that you are expecting to receive. Awesome. And then in this step, as we said, well, that's actually the full code because we are almost completed. So what happens here? Now the verifier has received proof of what it requested, right? Then the verifier at any point in time can go and check if that credential is valid. Now, remember this conversation at the beginning that we were talking about having the long form DIT or the short form Prism DIT, the published one or the unpublished one? What happened in here is we got a presentation issued by a specific issuer. Then we are going to grab that issuer DIT and resolve it on chain. We are getting the public keys from that issuer, and then we are verifying that this presentation was actually issued by that issuer, and also that was created by that subject, which is myself, the holder, if that makes sense. Then maybe this is like too fancy, right? Like it could all be fake. But let's maybe go back and build something different. So now we can do 2 things. We are going to create a presentation request that has a different expected value. Again, the workflow is exactly the same. This create presentation request function is going to create a QR code or a link that you would share with the holder. Now, again, as a holder, I only have 1 credential, right? But if you remember in the previous slide, the verifier is asking for a different claim that is not this one. So if I create a presentation of that credential, the verifier should know that it doesn't fulfill its requirements that he defined. Let's see what happens. Awesome. So now, great. We have the two presentations, right? The first one is the one that we just ran, and then this second one should be false. And we've been debating over the time, like how accurate the error messages should be. And I think in between not displaying too much information and not telling anything to the user, I think this is.
Just go back and recreate it, have it right.
Say that again?
If it tells me what the answer's supposed to be, I can just recreate it with the correct thing.
That's the answer for the verifier.
Okay.
The verifier doesn't control the holder.
Oh, okay, I see. Good point.
Yeah. So the verifier needs to know
What it is.
if it's false, why is it false? Is it the issuer that is wrong? Is it the claim that is wrong? What is exactly wrong? And this is telling the issuer, hey, you were requesting a credential for Javi, but you received a credential for Gonzalo, so that's wrong. In the same way, if it could be that you created the credential with a different deed, and then you would send a presentation from a different issuer. And the error message that you are going to get on the last screen is, instead of being expected this handle, it would be, we expected this issuer to be ABC and instead received EFG or whatever.
In the same way, like let's suppose the holder would somehow change his credential, right? Change the data on his credential, right? The moment the verifier got that proof, he could verify that the proof that he received was not signed by the issuer, right? The signature verification would fail, right? So he can verify the credential was changed somehow. The data doesn't correspond what they wanted, and it will just fail as well.
Cool. Those that have been with us for two or three or more years know that over the time using identity has been a little bit complicated, and this is a great representation of our way of thinking on this problem. And we basically have overbose logging, a lot of spacing, and in 240 lines, which I don't consider a huge amount of lines, we ran the whole workshop in mainnet. So what we did was, as an issuer, we created our deed, we published that on chain using Lace. Then we created an out-of-band credential offer, which was shared to the holder through a QR code or a URL. Then this holder accepted that credential, and then the issuer sent the actual credential. Then a verifier at some point wants to, maybe it's easier if we just talk about getting into this event and proving that you are actually invited to this event. The verifier would ask that you have been invited and that it's the Linux Foundation who issued you a credential. And that's basically what we ran today. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions or you want to cover anything specific. We could maybe go on the first topic. If not, Gonzalo, please.
I just want to reference one thing that I forgot and you forgot. The SDKs already work all with the presentation exchange 2.0 specification. That is also the specification that is used with Android and Apple. So they already support this specification, SDKs. So everything that you see Javi doing with the verifier and the holder, between the verifier and the holder, always done with the presentation exchange specification.
Thanks for adding that, Gonzalo. I think one thing that I for sure want to add is, and goes also very related to the first question that we had, right? And is the more tied you are to a specific technology, the less chance you have to grow into bigger things. So it is difficult to achieve in a running project like this one. But still, we are thinking on how can we make the most agnostic implementation possible. So at some point, integrating another blockchain would be very easy. Integrating another deed method for your specific business needs would also be doable. And you could integrate absolutely everything: deedcom, issuance, verification, and holding of credentials. Any more questions? Please share.
what are your thoughts on carry standards that Cardano Foundation uses for their identity wallet?
Like it is difficult to say. Like they are like complete different protocols. In my opinion, the SDK is a lot more flexible and easier to build something that is fully decentralized and less controlled by middle parties, right? At the point where in order to use a specific distributed or decentralized technology, you need to be deploying specific things that are on specific IP addresses. That's kind of centralizing stuff, right? So I think one of the benefits of using our SDK versus other players in the market, even on Cardano, is the fact that you really do not need to deploy anything rather than a mediator to start issuing deeds on chain. And you probably know that this took us a little bit of time to get here, right? In the past, the only component that was able to issue credential was the cloud agent implementation, which is what Gonzalo presented earlier, that we have a Scala implementation that is available in there, but that's more like a cloud implementation. So if you want to, for your business use case, you need to have, and that's okay, centralized services to handle what you need to handle, that's fine. Use the cloud agent. If your type of business requirements or business or project does require a more decentralized approach, and that's more important for you, then this SDK is the perfect representation. Today, we could say that the SDK is the not more advanced, but the more feature complete, but I could expect that at some point we are able to put, and again, I say this with like very big words, but the challenge is like relatively big, but to bring back the SDKs at the same level. So you could use the TypeScript SDK, you could use the JVM SDK, or you could use the Swift SDK. But so far, we are trying to do our best to continue developing the project, and maybe that's not the highest priority so far. Anything else, guys? Yep.
We've got a certain use case that we're trying to, how much metadata can you put in the, I guess, the credential?
Oh, that's more of a Cardano question that not so much identity related. I'm not sure how to answer that.
On the credential itself?
Well, actually, yeah, on the credential itself, just to, you know, our business case, we're trying to create there's one tied to a wallet, but then also to create duplicate users. So it's a voting system, so you can't have, you know, I can't go and create 10 wallets and I'll be Mike Chandler and I want to try to create to where, you know, the system is. So we're trying to put metadata in there to allow the checking in, make sure there's no duplicate metadata and stuff.
So you can add anything to the credentials.
Anything to the credential?
Anything. To
Yeah.
the
Credential is unlimited, really. The amount of claims that you put in there is just
That's what
up to you.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to go, there is some limitations on the type of credential that you have. So for example, onion creds, the more that you put, the more heavy it becomes, since it has like a lot of cryptographic in it, to achieve the zero knowledge proof. But if you use something like SDKPs, SDKPs is a special type of JSON, right? So you can do that for sure without any repercussion.
Cool. Also, this is just the first part. This is an Node.js script, but there's also some new packages that we contributed as part of the community on, which are for React developers to even make it easier. So you would not even need to write so much code. It's just a lot easier to use. And that's pretty much it. If there's no questions, I think I'm going to hand over to our colleague Socias. So please go ahead.
Well done. It's amazing. Okay. Gonna be identified. That should be okay.
I would just quit.
Yeah. Should be fine, right? Yes. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm the founder of Socialstack. So first, I want to start with big thank you to Javi,
The whole thing.
the whole team, Javi, and the whole team, because everything we built on Cardano and on Hyperledger Identus is thanks to the hard work of their team. So thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
And so Socius has been building on Cardano since 2021. And Hyperledger Identus, or in the past it was called Atala Prism, is one of the reasons why we came to Cardano. And so maybe who has watched Charles Hoskinson's TED Talk in 2014? And I think many of you have watched that video. Like, what did he talk about in that video? You remember?
Dramatically changing the world, or decentralizing power and giving data stewardship back to the individual.
Exactly. And he talked about the future will be decentralized, banking the unbanked, providing identities to those who don't. And that's why his team built a Tower Prism, and now it's called Hyperledger Identus. And first, I want to explain what we're doing with Hyperledger Identus, and also having Gonzalo went through more technical details of Hyperledger Identus, but I want to focus on the use cases, like how we're using this amazing technology to change the lives of real people. And I want to focus on two aspects. One is verifiable credential. So the fact that this is tamper-free credential that can be verified on-chain instantly. So that's the useful benefit of using Hyperledger Identus. Second part is selective disclosure. The fact that you don't need to show everything. You want to prove that you're at least 18 years old, and you don't need to share your name, your gender, your face. You just prove that yes or no, you're 18 years old. And finally, we've contributed to the open source project, and I think many of you are developers, and you have a great support from the core maintenance team. So if you want to contribute to the open source project, and I will share our experience contributing, it's been great, and I would encourage everyone to do the same. So first, what is Socialstack? Socialstack is a decentralized ecosystem empowering everyone to create positive change. So we have several products, and all of them we're using Hyperledger Identus. So first one is Socialstack Fund. So we are giving opportunities for founders, especially minority founders and underrepresented founders, to raise capital through Socialstack Fund. Socialstack work is after they raise capital, they want to hire people, and we help them hire the right talent, and we help people find jobs through Socialstack work. And these are supported by Socialstack verified Socialstack wallet. And this is basically Hyperledger Identus, but for consumers and for businesses. And we also have Tech for Impact Summit. I don't know if you were listening to Charles' speech, but he mentioned 3 times that he's going to Japan for this Tech for Impact Summit. And it's going to happen on the 7th of October. So you're all welcome. And if you want to come to this summit, and most of the Cardano community members will come to Japan for this event. About maybe 2,000 people will come to this event. And as you know, Cardano started in Japan. And we have more than 2,500 people who are active in the Cardano community in Japan. And most of them will be at this event as well. So if you want to hang out to the original Cardano community, then this is the event if you want. You don't want to miss. Okay, so the first part, verifiable credential. So this is we use it mostly for tamper-proof educational and work credentials, especially for job matching. Do you remember these cases? So this is the CEO of Yahoo, who got caught forging his educational certificate and had to resign. And this is MIT Mission D, also did the same thing and had to resign. And the worst case, the minister, one of the ministers in India, he forged his education certificate and he got arrested. Right, so this is a serious issue. And there's some statistics that 55% of residents, CVs, have some kind of falsified information. This is a lot. And I'm sure none of us are doing this, but there are people who are doing this. And it's because it's very easy. Like you receive paper certificate, right, or PDF certificate. And I go to Photoshop, and I can recreate, including the stamp, including the signature, exactly the same thing within 1 minute. And today, with AI, generative AI, you can recreate those maybe even shorter and much easier. So it's difficult to find out, looking at the PDF document or paper document, whether this is authentic or not. That's why we do background checks, right? So I think some of you have gone through the background check agencies. So I used to work for big organizations like the UN, the Red Cross, and every time I joined these new organizations, I had to go through background checks. So I would share everything about my past jobs, past employment, and also educational certificate. I submit those, but they don't believe it. You know, they want to make sure that these are authentic, so they have external agency, background check agency, that calls or emails the previous employers and previous schools to make sure that whatever I said on the CV is authentic and there's no falsified information. And this is expensive and time consuming. And so it could cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And for me, it was about like 3 months each time. And during these 3 months, they cannot hire me and I cannot join them, right? So this is a waste of resources and waste of opportunities. And it's because of that time consuming and you know, the cost element, it's a huge industry, $14 million industry worldwide. So and also it's not just for the hiring organization, but for educational institutions. Actually, it's diminishing their brand value. So if anyone can say that, hey, I went to Harvard, hey, I work for Google, right? So it will diminish their brand value as well. And if it's actually more than 2 million fake degrees sold in this country, in the United States. So this is a serious issue, and Hyperledger Identus makes it impossible for certificates while protecting personal information. So this is why one of the reasons why a Hyperledger Identus is very useful to combat this particular issue. So what are the benefits of using this verifiable credentials? First, for the employers, they don't need to hire background check agencies. And you know, it used to take 3 months to do the background checks, but now it takes, as Javi showed, takes like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, right? Instead of 3 months. So that's a huge difference. And sometimes we get calls from background check agencies that, hey, you know, did this person actually work for you, etc. And you know, we're a small organization, but some universities, they receive these inquiries all the time, emails, calls, and that's the cost. You have someone answer these phone calls and also answer these emails. And also individuals, they can own their identity. They own their credentials. So this is very important for individuals as well. So with Socius, we are working with 16 universities worldwide, especially in Africa, where the forged certificates are rampant. There are many forged certificates. If you go there, it's very easy to buy fake certificates. And some of them are quite well-known universities in Africa, top universities in Kenya, University of Nairobi and Strathmore University, and other universities in Cameroon. And so all the students, they graduate from these universities, they get their diplomas and transcripts through Hyperledger Identus. And with their information, with trusted, authentic information, we can match them to different jobs. And now from the hiring side, 30,000 companies are using Social's work to hire verified talent. Okay, now I want to get into selective disclosure. So this is the second benefit or use case for Hyperledger Identus. And we have two different cases: anonymous account verification for Social Fund. This is our crowdfunding platform. And anonymous age verification for age-restricted substances like alcohol, cigarettes, etc. So first, Socialist Fund is a crowdfunding platform, fundraising, decentralized fundraising platform that democratizes access to capital. So maybe you know Project Catalyst and maybe Gitcoin. So this is a mixture of Catalyst and Gitcoin. And we're trying to address investment disparity. So only 2% of venture capital goes to female founders, and only 2.8% of capital goes to the global south. And why? This is because, not because women don't have the talent or skills, or people in the global south don't have skills. It's because people who make decisions tend to be men in the global north. And that there is inherent bias, unconscious bias that comes into that decision. So that's why we allowed our community members to make decisions. Instead of one person, 3 people making decisions, now thousands of people can vote and make decisions on how to distribute funding and how who gets funding, right? So we consider 3 things: the number of supporters, and the amount of donations they can collect, and also the supporters' past impact, their reputation score. And this is where, for the donation, we're using quadratic voting system, so similar to Gitcoin. But the difference is that we are using Hyperledger Identus to make sure that we can protect the system from cyber attacks. So as you know, maybe you have so many wallets and you have many email accounts. So because we consider the number of supporters, but one person can pretend that 100 people supported this project. If you allow people to vote with wallets or like email accounts. But with Hyperledger Identus, actually, we can make sure that one person has only one vote or one account, but also protecting their identity. So they don't need to show their name, their gender, their face, or anything, but we make sure that there is no duplicate account, and they're not a bot, they are a human being, unique individual. So that's how we use Hyperledger Identus for Socialist Fund, especially the quadratic funding mechanism. And in the pilot round, we recently finished our pilot round, and 766 unique voters voted, and we've actually catalyzed $16,000 for different projects. So like we put in $10,000 actually, but $6,000 came from the community for voting for donations. Okay, now age verification for alcohol sales. So this is a company in Japan. They sell alcohol. So in the past, they had to actually see the ID, actual ID, driver's license, your passport, etc., to determine whether the customer is at least 20 years old. And that's the legal age in Japan to drink alcohol. And if they don't do that, they go to jail, or like they need to pay a fine if they don't check the customer's age. However, the risk is that because they're holding this private information, personal information, and there's a risk of identity theft if that gets leaked. So they need to invest a lot in information security. But the truth is that they don't want to hold that information. They just want to know whether the customer is at least 20 years old. They don't need the name or gender or anything else. So with self-sovereign identity, they can achieve that. But also, it's very complicated to build a self-sovereign identity system, especially if they are small sellers and alcohol sellers. So that's why we built something very easy. So this is, you can consider something like Stripe for self-sovereign identity. So as you know, Stripe, like you can create a code snippet or maybe a link, and then you can just use it, no code. You can use it integrated into your website, right? So that's what we did with our Socialstack Verify platform. So they can conduct age verification while protecting personal information on the no-code platform. So all they did is like they did some settings, and then they copy-pasted code snippet into the website, and now on the website they can actually check someone's age without receiving your name, your gender, your face, or anything. And yeah, so finally, I want to get into open source contributions. And this one was about the seed phrase. So I think most of you know how to manage mnemonic like seed phrases. But it's not the case for the majority of the human population. I think we are in a minority here. And the solutions that we're providing for students, like we're talking about thousands of students who graduate, some of them know how to manage crypto wallets and seed phrases, but most of them don't, right? So that's why we got feedback and we learn from it. Feedback is that we don't know how to, deal with these 24 words. Like, what do we do with it? Can we just save it on my note application, or why do we have to write it on the paper? Those are things. And it was causing lots of problems. And one of the things is that it's a single point of failure. So if it gets stolen or if you lose it, then it could result in significant loss in asset loss, etc., or identity theft. And seed phrase management is challenging for beginners, right? So it's really not for people who don't have any prior experience with blockchain and crypto wallets. So that's what I talk with the team, especially with Javi, that hey, we want to improve the SDK. We want to improve to enable file recovery similar to other identity wallets, instead of managing wallet recovery through seed phrase or like mnemonic. And we told them, and they were like, okay, that's a great idea. And also, we are not planning to do that with our own resources from the core maintenance team. So we welcome you to contribute. And that's what we did. So we contributed a small part. So now everyone who is building on Hyperledger Identus, they have two options. One option is to do the normal crypto wallet type seed phrase management. And second is that we have the recovery file. So basically, we went from a single point of failure to two-factor authentication. So now everyone knows how to manage files, and everyone knows how to manage passwords. So all the files are protected by password, but they are stored separate locations, maybe in your head with the password. So even with hackers getting access to your file, if they don't have the password, they can do anything with it, and vice versa. So if they have the password but no recovery file, and they cannot restore their wallet. So that's is for us to allow general users, so people who don't have prior crypto blockchain experience, to actually manage their identity wallets. And yeah, and it took some time, but Curtis and Javi helped a lot with merging to the main branch, and that was our experience. So if you have any ideas, they're open to contributions, and yeah, you're welcome to contribute. And also, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for listening.
Before everybody gets to run out, I've been reminded by Daniela that in our booth, we have shirts and stickers for Identus. So please, tomorrow, when they say, stop by the booth and get all the shirts and stickers. Thank you. Thank you for.
Any question for?
We stopped sharing, like, yeah, well done. Got all kinds of questions that are more specific to my situation.
We can take it privately.
Yeah.
So let's move on. I have just one more short thing.
Oh, sorry.
It's the last thing. No. We have one more short thing. Here you go. Yeah, now it needs to be with microphone. Sorry. Okay, so this is being built by IO, right? And we are also in Identus trying to, now that we support credentials, we support issuers, we support holders, we support verifiers, right? But we wanted to tackle more as well the part of the holder, right? So one thing is, if a holder will always need a wallet to keep his credentials, right? So we are tackling more on these sides of the application for the holder, right? How the holder will see the credentials, what information will be there, what happens, how can the verifier contact the holder so he can verify any proposition, right? So what is your age and so on, right? So we are working with Lace, right? We are, I cannot show the code, but we are basically having identity in Lace, right? So this also goes to the question that you made. So this did is actually already on a specification that we are holding. And basically what we created on this specification was it has a derivation path, right? So the master key of the deed, it's handled with the derivation path that is created with the seed of the wallet, right? So you can always recover the deeds and we can always recover the public keys, right? How the Prism deeds work is you can always update the Prism deed. So imagine that you have a public key that was that you need rotating the public key because it was stolen. Let's say the private key was stolen, right? You need to rotate the public key. So the Prism deed allows that. You can add a new public key to the Prism deed, right? And anyone can resolve it and get that public key. Okay. So in the future, using this specification, if you need to go to another device or wherever, you just need to your seed phrase and you have your deeds back and working.
Like some kind of recovery part.
You just need to read from the blockchain.
But you cannot
Resolve it.
regenerate the credentials. That makes sense. You can
No,
regenerate
the
deeds.
deeds, not the credentials,
Yes.
right? Not the credentials.
What about if you, your seed phrase? Can you,
No, that is like losing the wallet. That you can always get the deed back, right? You can always get the public keys back, but you will not be able to probably sign any proof for the verifier, right?
is this available now?
No, no. This is not available now, right? This is not available, right? I wanted to show because this is what we are also working now. We are working with Identus to bring a wallet that can hold credentials.
I'm not sure if he's asking for the recovery part or what's exactly what he's asking, because if you lost access to your seed or your seed was compromised, this deed could have a different recovery fee. It's
Yeah.
different from the one that you are actively, and at some point that recovery is the one that are.
Yeah.
It
You're
could be
recovering
like-
in a different wallet?
Yes, it can be like physically separated. One could be a hardware wallet and another one. Could be
Yeah. So we also trying like how the credentials are presented, right? We're also trying with these aspects. We have a few ideas on our mind. We are also
Okay,
looking.
But this is exactly what we are not supporting, and that you are bringing through this.
No, these ones we are supporting everything. So we are supporting, right? But our idea is more on the older side, on the wallet side. How can we help the wallets present the credential for the holder, right? Right. So we have a few ideas in mind, and we will probably try to work and create specifications on those, right, for W3C. But as you can see, this is like a beta stage of it. This works with our SDKTS, right? So this is all built with our SDKTS, and these credentials were actually issued by a cloud agent and were sent to this wallet. Yes.
The stores.
So we use the cloud agent, and we made a connection with the cloud agent, and we issued credentials to this user. So we have a cloud agent, right? So we have a cloud agent. The cloud agent works as an issuer. Okay. And this wallet is able to connect to a cloud agent, right? And the cloud agent can issue credentials to the wallet. Right?
I cover.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, what would happen is that you create a proof of your credential. That's the verifier. So this credential proof that the holder is creating contains an issuer key and is signed by the holders. So then that security has two specific fields or specific fields that are important. Like for more important, it is the subject, in this case it could be the holder and the issuer. When you as a verifier receive that JSON object, it is a JWT classic one, then you would grab that key, resolve the keys, then check that credential is actually signed with the same keys that they are saying they're signed. No.
Nope. It can even be another phone.
It resolves the big from blockchain. And then doesn't need to use the Firebase or anything.
The verifier is an actor. It makes a request of you, like, show me this data.
Yeah. Also a holder could request. Like,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Anyone can be a verifier.
As soon as they have access to
So I wanted to show this as well, because this is actually issued by different cloud agents. So I made it all locally, just to be sure. But I have four collations locally, and I issued from each one credential, right? And these credentials then can be open, showed, like the credential is valid and verified, right? This is a simple verification, right? Because you just want to check if the holder did, like the public keys correspond with the data that you receive, the signature, right? And you can respond. They are actually all SDJWT, right? They are all SDJWT credentials. And we are going to start now doing the part of the verification, right? So, yeah.
Now, is this on midnight?
No, this one is not a midnight, right? I know we have the midnight in there. I know. But it's not on the midnight, okay? But we are also trying a few things with midnight as
So
well.
just out of curiosity, and I want to preface it with I'm not we're kind of like the project manager, so I don't want to suppose. Can I dig down and find out the metadata of the driver's license?
If you are the holder, sure. If you are the holder, you
Yes.
can do anything. Like the credential is yours, right? You have all the data in yours. So other credentials, like you said about revocation, right? You talked about revocation. Revocation works with the VDR. So the revocation data is actually not on the credential that you have. Normally, it's on a public domain, right? Or on the Cardano blockchain, right? The most common one is a bitmap. So you have basically a index for the bit that you want, and if it is 0, it's your credential is revoked. If it is 1, it's not revoked, right? And this is normally achieved that you can get this data from VDR, right? So a verifiable data registry, and that part is controlled by the issuer. So let's say you are the issuer, you gave me a credential, right? And at some point in time, you said, okay, so this credential, I want to revoke it. I'm going to issue another credential to this user. I want to revoke this one. So you update that status list with that bit for that credential to 0, right? And any verifier that will try to verify it will show it as not valid as well, right? So this is the way so the issuer can maintain some control for the credential, right? But it requires a VDR because the main claims and the main credential. It's like you have in the card, right? You have your ID on your pocket, right, in your wallet. Like it's the same thing, right? But now you have it on a wallet on the
So,
digital wallet.
for example, I believe I want to take an address on my driver's license. Can the end user do that?
Well, they should do whatever they want. The probably they created a rule that it would not happen.
Yeah.
That is very much.
Yes.
You
But
need
you
to
can-
request the issuer to send you another credential with, just like as if happened in real. Would go to your password, and this would actually include different set of keys inside the password.
One thing the SDKs already allow it, right? And it depends of the implementation of the wallets to enable access to that is the SDKs already enable encryption and backup of everything that you have, like all the deeds, all the public keys, all the private keys, everything is encrypted, right? And given to you, and you can basically pass it to another wallet, right? And you can decrypt if you can decrypt in there if you have the same seed phrase. Basically, this is how the system works, right? And you can pass everything to another wallet.
I am a believer, though, and also a little bit against this idea, but I am a believer that once you have sent the credential, you should never store it anymore. So if that credential is lost or you need to recover it, what you need to do is revoke the previous one. No longer. Because that's the only way you can have certainty that credential nobody else rather than you had it, right? If you keep a record, the issuer's database, just like in the line of
You can't duplicate it. Can't duplicate it.
exactly, my opinion, once it's sent, should be thrown away, and then instead you need to recover, you would need to raise. But again, that's what makes It depends a lot on the business use case.
Yeah.
Depends on what.
We
So-
can also use this as like a ticketing system to where, once it's checked in, it's.
Yes, you can. So this is one thing we also build like the old Identus platform, right? It's on abstraction. We prefer to abstract every layer, right? So the actual implementation can be changed. Okay.
It was actually thanks to.
So, for example, and have you touched on this before, right? So, for example, the SDKs, right? I can go to any SDK and change the cryptographic library, right? And it will still work if you have the same cryptographic principles that we want, right? So you can change all that implementation. We also have Caster that is more for deeds, right? For all the deeds specification, and you can add your own methods. Like you can create a deed method, add it, and the SDKs will just work. No problem added for that, right? Same for credentials. You can add another types of credentials. So we always worked on this type of abstraction. We try to abstract from implementation. So, and we use the same for the blockchains and the VDR that we are working, right? So if we are in the, so let's say in the VDR, we want to create, we on our catalyst proposal, we just made for Cardano, right? So we are creating a VDR, right? And the main intuitive for Cardano, right? But we have it open for any other blockchain. If we can do the same for Midnight, right? We can create a driver, not for Cardano, but for Midnight, and it will work, right? So we always try to do these things more abstract, right? Because we know it's a changing world, right? It's always going to evolve.
Thank you for that.
Thank every one of us.
You were one of the ones that were thinking, like, it was the right moment 3 years ago when we took some time to redesign that, and he was like strongly pushing for this, I perfectly remember, for this protocol-based architecture, and thanks to taking the right decisions in time, we are now in a place where shifting to another blockchain, which, like, I don't need another blockchain. In case there is other projects that want to become multi-chain or that want to be working on other blockchains, our system is 80% ready, but just maybe a couple of days.
And to pick up on what was presented by Socials, right? It's we also want to be abstract to any use case, right? We want to favor any use case. We know, like in these governments, in this digital identity, right? We will have governments. We will have ticketing platforms. We will have a bunch of medical records, right? We have universities, and we want to be abstract and be able to support every use case, right? So if you are a government, you probably want something more centralized, right? Governments are like this. So they would prefer something more centralized. So we allow this, right? We are not strictly decentralized. We know there are some use cases that would prefer to be centralized, right? So we allow this. You can use the platform with a centralized use case, but we also allow, and we work more, and we prefer the decentralized space. Okay, so this was always our mind vision when we were implementing this platform.
Maybe don't have such technical expertise, and maybe somebody technical, but if you had, you would clearly see we have a folder of this thing called domain. That's where all these protocols that are saying, where all the core thinking project is living, and then the rest is just an implementation of that. The same kind of concept applies to his SDK, the TypeScript SDK, or the JVM SDK. Of course, they are not the same
level right now.
They don't have the same amount of features right now, but in the past, were completely fair.
Yeah.
I believe Gonzalo was the one that was first, if I'm not mistaken. Swift was the one that was more advanced at the beginning,
Yeah.
until at some point.
Now it's more TS, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
This is a new situation.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Identus is a rebranding, like when, maybe Ray can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, at the point when the project was connected to Hyperledger, we also took some time to it's the repository.
Yes. So
It's absolutely the same, just we renamed the repositories, we moved them to a new place, but it's literally the same.
so it was always the purpose of Fatala to become open source, right? So yeah, and then we went to Hyperledger, right? So
But why
yeah.
did we change our name? Is part of the idea there usage?
Yeah.
So that, is that part of the
Yeah.
each project?
Absolutely. So part of our it's for example the VDR, right?
No, why it was donated to Hyperledger? Like Charles,
My guess would be. I'm taking off my works of the place hat. My guess would be that the center of gravity for digital identity, blockchain stuff in open source was Hyperledger at the time. And, now that we've rebranded to LFT, that has made, given us a broader umbrella. Centralized
Linux Foundation. Linux Foundation.
Linux Foundation,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I've worked at LF for 10.5 years, so for me, LF is like air. So, yeah, so there was a restructuring, and part of that restructuring was some projects chose to keep the Hyperledger branding, some projects chose to not keep Hyperledger branding. So Identus has chosen to keep it. So Hyperledger is a collection of projects. It's no longer its own distinct.
But
Yes.
yeah, sure.
Do you guys have any like expense going with different digital identities? Get some that rebuild like governance and
So go to lfdecentralizedtrust.org. There is a use case tracker on there. And then also take a look at the Open Wallet Foundation, which I also support. Open Wallet Foundation also has a use case tracker. So you can shoot me an email, rjones@linuxfoundation.org, and say, where are the use cases? I will get those to you. Or like hit me on, Discord or whatever. Sorry? RJONS at linuxfoundation.org. Just tell me, that's my job.
I'm not sure if you guys heard Socials when he was presenting, but Socials is also a great guy that if you guys can share 20 minutes with him to have better understanding, he did a great 2 or 3 slides that were talking about this use cases.
Yeah.
Like quadratic voting. Yeah, it was having a talk.
Is this video gonna be published anywhere?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of effort to make sure that this was recorded. It's being recorded on Zoom right now. Later, I can't say when, sometime this weekend, I'll take that Zoom recording, chop it out. And it's all that. And I will publish this on the LFDT YouTube channel. So it will, it's my top priority to get this published because.
Yes. Any more questions? I guess not. So I guess we can finish, right? I just wanted to show as well this. Yeah. So thank everybody to come. Thank you, Javi. I guess the social guys are not here. No, I don't have any closing words. Nervous enough. I think I can leave Ryan. for it.
Closing words, and I got this from my former coworker and now TAC chair of LFDT. A lot of people think that they need some sort of entree to get involved in open source. This is your invitation. Okay, you don't need permission to get involved. We need you to join our working groups. You don't have to be a coder. Like one of our largest ingest points for new contributors is translating documentation. And it turns out if you go and translate all of the Fabric documentation in Japanese, by the time you're done, you're pretty good, got a pretty good understanding of Fabric. We have another active community that's doing the same thing in Portuguese in Brazil. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to get involved, and we need you, and we want you to be there. And this is your invitation. So join us. And thank you for being here. Thank you.
Actually, I just was on the middle of answer. I think it was you that asked of the open source part.
I was just asking
Contributions, right?
about cross-chain usage and whether or not that creates a network around the standard, and therefore, you know,
That's what we want to achieve, right? We want for people to contribute more, right? Even the VDR that we are now, we have a catalyst proposal, right? We made the VDR so it's abstract, so you can create your own drivers for your own blockchain or your own URL managers that we call, right? But it has a specification that is open, right? We created the main implementation, the main abstraction for it, right? But it's open for your contribution, right? So you can have other chains, same for the Identus work, right?
If we bring other blockchains, there's a lot of things that we may not have figured out yet, that like what happens with the same instance of that. There's a couple of things that we would need to figure out, but what he's trying to say, or what he's saying, is that we are foundationally abstract. That once we have to figure out this, this network and one.
Yeah.
Like we are foundationally ready.
There's always like the holder, like we will have to touch a lot of platforms, technologies, right? There is iOS, Android, web. There's a bunch of platforms, all with different technologies, right? We try to always adapt to that, right? And create the best implementation that we can, and to offer all that we can to all the platforms, right? So we want web, we want Java to be on your computer, right? We want on everything that is Apple, so it works on all the devices of Apple, whatever they are, or they will be, all the Androids, right? Because, for example, mobile will be very powerful, and I cannot imagine you not holding your credentials on your mobile. So it will be very powerful. And also the technologies to communicate between the verifier and the holder, right, will be very important. So yes, we want to go through all of this, right? It's something that we are still going through. We are evaluating things like OIDC, right? OIDC, VC, OIDC VP, right? So because it's also used by, for example, by Android right now. So yeah, we want to support everything, and we want Identus to be a platform that you can just be an issuer, easily set up an issuer platform that you can use with your own use case, right? And provide holders with the credentials or that you want to provide, right? And we want to also enable holders to keep their credentials secure, their private key is secure, everything secure, so they don't have to mess that up, right? Because we understand that as social we're saying, we understand it's difficult, like it's not something that every single one can understand, right? And to verifiers, we want to enable verifiers to easily connect with holders, right? And connect with the data and prove it very simple, right? Well, there's one thing that I always say in this space, it's not how much money you will make, it's how much money you will save, right? So it's around like if you go to you have companies that are on FIDO and are based just on verifying this type of credentials, right? They build all these AI and all these products based on verifying these credentials, right? And these companies are expensive, right? All these flows are expensive. These will just delete of that middleman, right? It's about saving money than making money. Right? So yeah, I guess this is it. Any more questions? No.
So one of the big efforts that we put on to follow the standard business, because it's not like for this blockchain or phone, it's writing for way for everyone to just one. So
yeah.
If we even reading those, they don't mean something. Yeah, that's the place where everyone is from. Because doing it message work with your own
Yeah. Well, what he wants to say, it's more like we want to achieve interoperability between all the platforms, right? So yeah, we also have quite a few specifications of our own, and we always try to make those specifications open source and try to work with W3C as well, right? We provided some contributions already for example SDKs, and so on. So yeah.
I think interoperability has a lot of we still need to figure out that more than interoperability, what I could say is that new projects that are already those projects that are running identity products outside of Cardano can migrate to a better network through this more abstract version of money. Because if not, this would require a huge amount of changes to the SDK that would make it not work. Yeah.